All right, so let's begin. I just want to, before we start, everyone. Oh, I can see people waving. Hello. My name's Gemma Robbins. I'm the Network Coordinator at Regional Arts WA. And I just want to let everyone know we are recording this session. So if you don't feel comfortable, please turn your webcams off because we'll be putting it on our website for other people to view a bit later. So welcome to our first artist conversation panel. I'd like to start by saying I'm on Whadjuk Noongar country and pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and acknowledge that, you know, this is WA and we're all on different countries. So I'd like to extend my respects to all those elders that you are representing and ask for our panel members when they introduce themselves to let us know what country they're on. So some formalities before I pass on to our CEO, Dr. Pilar Cassette, who will be facilitating this conversation today. Please, I think you're all on mute, which is perfect. We've got one more panel joining us. She's on the road. She's going to be home soon, Chloe. So I'm just going to keep an eye out of when she gets online, and I'll pin her as well and unpin me. So everyone's on mute. What else did I want to say? This is Zoom, and if you've updated the latest version, you can actually put captions on. So I just wanted to say that is in more, 3 small dots at the end of your screen, and then it says captions. So if that's a better way of following this panel, please do that. I ask if you've got any questions or there's any issues, I'll be monitoring the chat function. We will have time for a little bit of a Q&A, maybe 1 or 2 questions at the end. There's lots to get through with this panel. And so, yeah, from that, I might just start and unpin myself and find Chloe in this sea of people who've come to hear these amazing artists. So I'll hand over to you, Pilar. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Gemma, for that intro and acknowledgement to country. I am in Waialalap, which is close to Fremantle, and I'm in Hammer Hill, actually, and I was looking for the specific name for Hammer Hill, but I couldn't find it, so the closest I could find was Waialalap, which is Freo. It's really lovely to have you here, and we'll let people come in as they flow in. Chloe got stuck in traffic in the original area, so as Gemma says, she's driving in and she'll join us in a minute. But I'm delighted. We've been, you know, this is a series. This is the first of many, hopefully, to come. These creative connections, and this aims to really get us together and explore the very many ways and varied ways in which artists are interfacing with communities in regional across our vast state of WA. So today we've got 3 amazing artists, and I'm hoping that Chloe will looks like Chloe is just arrived. And what I'm going to do, we only have an hour. So to make the most of this time with the artists in the room, I'm going to name them and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, and we're going to kick off straight away. I just want to thank you participants, because you really make this series really far more interesting. And I'm going to start by welcoming and saying hello to Janine Oxenham. Can you give us a wave, Janine? Thank you. I was going to say Chloe, but I'm going to go Lex Randolph. Lex, can you give us a wave? Thank you. Hi. Thank you. And Chloe Flockart. Is Chloe here yet? No, that's okay. Chloe will come when she in a good time. So first of all, these artists combine and together they represent a variety of art forms, from visual arts to dance to performing arts. And I'm going to right now invite them to introduce themselves. And the question is really to tell us a little bit about yourself and your practice. And we're going to take about a couple of 2 or 3 minutes each, and then we're going to launch on the questions proper. Right, so Janine, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks. Hi, everybody. My name's Janine. I am living down on Wedandi, down in Unalap in Littleton, and that's where I am. And I'm a Mulgana woman from the Midwest, Sharp area. I grew up in Carnarvon on Ingada country. I am probably a movement artist in recent years, I've moved into a bit of theatre, looking at movement direction and physical theatre, and I absolutely love it. I love telling stories through the physical form. I'm a mum of two girls, and I just love connecting with community, working with community, and finding their stories. What do they want to tell? What do they want to talk about? And helping them to bring them to life, really. That's my passion.
Thanks, Janine. Chloe just arrived. Chloe, we know that you were driving to get there. I hope you had a minute to catch your breath. I'm going to go to Lex now. Lex, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your arts practice, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I have worked in, I guess, the community arts and cultural development, arts and health, arts and mental health sector for probably nearly 20 years. And I've worked for a whole lot of different organisations. I've done quite a lot of work at Data, Awesome Arts, Propel Youth Arts, different local governments. But currently, my career has taken a little bit of a dog leg, and I'm currently teaching visual arts and music in Wyndham in the East Kimberley, which prompts me to acknowledge that I am on Balangara country up here in Wyndham in the East Kimberley, and pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging here. I was just going to add to that. Sorry, Pilar, for taking an extra bit of time. But I just wanted to say that I guess I feel like, my work definitely is still evolving. But I have three key passions in the arts and education and mental health. But I generally still feel like all of that and all of my arts practice is kind of underpinned by the process of community arts and cultural development.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to now go to Chloe. Chloe, if you can tell us a little bit about who you are and your arts practice.
Yeah, I'm currently on Nadi Nadi Balladong country, so Central Wheatbelt. If you've not left Perth, we're about 3.5 hours inland. And at the moment, I manage a not-for-profit whose sole purpose is to try and get as much funding in to run arts and cultural programs out in the Central Wheatbelt, which means sometimes my day-to-day is like today, where I have to go out and run workshops. Sometimes it's helping people write grants. Sometimes it's working with up-and-coming artists to introduce them into the arts sector. So very, very good role. But originally, I was a puppeteer. I don't get to do that so much anymore, but I really enjoy helping other people launch their careers in the arts.
Thank you. Now, thanks, all of that, really diverse, backgrounds, diverse practices. And some of you may know this, but community arts and cultural development is notoriously hard to define. And we've got some people in the room like Karen that have worked for many, many years in this practice. I just want to say thank you and for being here, because you can teach us a thing or two about this practice, Karen. And it is notorious. The names we know as community arts, community cultural development, then became community arts and cultural development, social practice, art for social change. But what we're here to do today really is to understand the practice itself from the experience of the individual. So there is no one size fits all, because this practice is so contextual and relational. So it's all about what happens in the creative process between an artist and a particular community at a particular point in time with particular issues. So having said that, I'm gonna kick off with the first question for Janine. And this is, we talk about community arts practice, so connected to community. So I just want to ask you, how is your community, and however you define that, how's the community influence you as an artist? And I'm asking that question because, there is a perception sometimes the artist as a solo practice that creates, this incredible work, but yet all of us are inserted in a context, and we are human beings, are relational. So one way or another, we all are impacted and shaped by where we are and the place in which we live. So I'm really interested to hear about the influence that your particular community has had on you, Janine, especially being a First Nations woman.
Yeah, thank you, Pilar. Growing up in the Gascoyne, I felt I was so, influenced by my community. there's lots of shame factor in a lot of regional towns, and a lot of young Indigenous kids and other children can be really affected by that, as was I. And so it was something that I wanted to break out of. And I think opportunities presented themselves where I could actually enter into the movement industry. NAISDA, actually, some people from NAISDA were touring around regional WA. Can you believe it? I think it was the only time that it ever happened, and they came to Carnarvon and they went through Geraldton. They recruited quite a few of us in that particular year, so I was extremely lucky. But those opportunities are so few and far between, and in my lifespan, that's the only time they've ever toured regional WA.
Can you tell us, for those of us who don't know that you're talking about, just tell us let's not assume that everyone knows.
Sorry, so in Sydney, there's an Indigenous school called the National Aboriginal and Islander Skills Development Association. When I was younger, they were in Sydney, and now they are located south of Sydney in Gosford. So they're regional. They're a regional school. Which, to help Indigenous kids, that's pretty awesome, because then they come from region and they go to region. So my community is, when I create anything I do, it can be any kind of conceptualized entity, but when I create, I really like to draw on my community, whether it's asking different people questions about things, asking them for stories. How do they feel? How would they move? How does that make their body feel and move? Also, a lot of my practice is dictated by doing the right thing culturally. That's really important to me, and it drives a lot of what I do. So, and those things take time, as a lot of you mob would know, working in communities. So, you do something, you go and ask an elder if it's okay. You might have to go and ask a couple of elders if it's okay. You might get them to come in for a look. You might ask them to show you some moves, or if something's not right, how can you make it better? So a lot of that goes on for me, and that can take a lot of time.
Janine, I just want to probe you a little bit on something when you say go ask elders about something, and then I might integrate that into your practice. There is and CCD practice is inherently consultative, right? So people go and consult with communities. Just a quick comment around the mining of knowledge or ideas or stories for someone's purpose. In your case, obviously you are from that community, but any thoughts on, the consultative process that can go maybe, wrong, if you like, that people go and consult and then they might not, and I think this is a thing that happens quite often. So thoughts on that?
Yeah, so there are different things that can go wrong. People coming into community and thinking they already know what the community needs, as we've all probably heard this story, and then they're creating from an outside source. That can go terribly wrong, especially if it's something that's culturally inappropriate. Also, people who may hear a story and feel that story is given to them, but actually didn't ask or didn't. There was no acknowledgement of that information being shared for the purpose of performance or to be shared with other people. So you've really got to be quite specific around, be transparent. What are you doing? Asking them if they want to be involved, asking them if they want to come and perform even. Do they want to lend their voice? Do they want to, share in any way with the process? And if they don't, then asking them if along the way you could keep checking in with them. And if they do share a story, make sure you definitely say, do you want us to use it in the show? Can we use it? Because maybe they do want you to use it. So, yeah.
Thank you. No, that's really value those reflections. I'm going to ask now, Chloe. People talk about, the ones of us have been privileged in being in community arts and cultural development for many years. We deeply know how transformative this practice is, and people speak about that again and again. Transformation is a word that is used a lot around this practice. And I just want to know, Chloe, a project that you worked on with community that had that effect on you. And tell, could you share a little bit about what was this transformative element and how that impacted you as an artist as well?
There's probably 3 examples which stand out. So I'm going to try and be as concise as possible. Here in Merredin, I did my fellowship through Regional Arts WA. I did a practice transition from puppetry to projection mapping because my community had had a group come across from South Australia and do some animations and project on one building in town. And I saw the community kind of like see themselves reflected back in a really amazing way, but it only happened for a couple of nights and then it disappeared, and it was quite a costly enterprise. And I was like, I think we can do that cheaper and better and with more community involvement. So spent 6 months running workshops to get people to share their stories of how they came to town or what parts of town were special to them. And then we chose 5 buildings in town. Got a bicycle, rigged a projector to it, projection mapped on some buildings with like animations made based on illustrations by people in community. And we probably had about 100 people do that over a month-long period. And hearing people share their stories of each building as we would go to it, or like one stands out to me, just this particular lady. We're in the car park of this other building, projecting on the side of this building. And she's like, oh, there used to be a park bench here. There used to be a fountain here. There used to be public toilets over there. And she just started painting this image of what the town used to be. And then that started to happen more and more as we would do it, where people were like, yeah, there's like a billiards thing over there, or that used to be such and such shop. And it's like the town itself kind of came back for an evening, and it was really beautiful. And that moment for me, I was like, oh gosh, that's the kind of stuff that I want to do with arts practice in community, is find ways of giving community opportunity to reflect back. I think what happens a lot in my practice is we go in, we uncover a story and we present it back, but there's something so beautiful in the community just very gently goes like, I have this memory, or I have this feeling, or I have this desire. And the other one for me is, so I do a lot of teaching through my practice because that's how I got into doing what I do. I wouldn't be here today. Like I grew up 45 minutes that way from here, small country school, 150 students. The only reason why I'm an artist is because it was the 90s and early 2000s, and there was enough funding for people like Buzz Dance, Spare Parts, Buck and Gecko to come out to my school every now and again. And so for me, I go out to as many schools as I can, as often as I can. It's not as often as I would like, and give kids the opportunity to work with an artist. And honestly, every time that I see a kid go, I love what I've done, or I'm so proud of this, or I've done this, it makes me, it fills me up in such a way that doing my own practice never really has. And that's where I was like, oh, I think I really am sitting in the CCD realm. I don't think I actually sit in the traditional artist realm where painting a picture feels satisfying for me. Watching a kid paint a picture and go like, oh my God, what have I done? It just feels so much better. And I think for me, that's the biggest transformation of working in this space, was really solidifying my practice and going, oh, that's where my joy comes in. And so it doesn't feel like a loss. I don't feel like I've lost a practice. I feel like I've gained a practice by sort of letting my art go a bit, and instead just going, I'm here to share skills. What can we make together? I'm going to stop myself there. Otherwise I'll keep.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love the reflection. And I think just the way you communicated that, Chloe, really reflects that kind of the joy that you get into working in a particular way. And the kind of, I want to ask something, but I'm going to go to Lex first and maybe we'll combine these. So Lex, again, this I just want to keep going on this idea of transformation, right? So, but in this question, I just want to more understand the transformative aspect for the people that you work with, rather than your own journey. I mean, you can please weave some of your personal ones, but what have you seen or witnessed in the people that you work with when you work in this medium with CCD, that you go, my God, I just see the transformative in the people that we're working together with?
Yeah, well, I have definitely seen that, throughout my career. But here in Wyndham, I think one of the big things that, that I learned as a teacher up here was about the trauma experiences of the kids that I teach, and having a passion already in mental health. that kind of stood out to me, and it was something that I knew that the arts was, has proven benefits for mental health and for overcoming trauma, or and that kind of thing. So I really feel like that's some of the changes that I've seen in my students, and their I guess the ability for arts experiences and the process of the arts, participating in arts, to have a change on them, sometimes physical, sometimes emotional. The other thing for me up here is definitely, and this probably is a slightly more personal aspect of the learning, but I guess for me, finding the meeting point between my practice and this community. I think I saw my community as the arts community before I came to a regional town, and now being in a small town, I very much feel like my geographical place is my community. And so the relationships that I have built and that I see around me, I feel like they're really transformative. And I think, to echo what Janine was saying before about taking time, I feel like the work that I've done here is taking a really long time, but that's important, to be able to do that, to ask, to listen, to share, all of those things, and just take I've said the wrong word, because I totally don't mean take. I mean, I guess I'm looking at what I can bring to the role, but that sometimes those things aren't always exactly what the community needs, and being really aware of that and working through.
Yeah, well, there's complexity in communities, really, especially for people that have experienced trauma, right? So that's not necessarily easy. As an artist, we're not necessarily equipped to be able to deal with that. But there's a mechanism, right? There's a mechanism in community cultural development that offers an opportunity for that engagement to be not necessarily so direct, but a bit more tangential, a bit more gentle, right? So there is process to this. Before we move into another question about the learnings, I just wanted to just a couple of observations here that has come through I think the three of you in some ways. The opportunity to be seen and acknowledged. I think in the case of Janine, someone saw her and all of a sudden she believed or maybe inhabit that creative capacity that you had, Janine. And I think Chloe, in a way, you also echo that. And my sense is one of the reasons of this practice is to be able to make the visible the invisible. And sometimes those stories are really creating enormous power when people can see them and can share them, and people can tell those stories from their own perspective, in their own terms, with their own frames. They are the ones that got to set the stage. But I want to move into the learnings now, because this practice, and again, I know Karen will probably have, if we're trying to go to questions at some point if you want to make a comment, but it is, fraught with danger, this work in some ways. So I'm going to ask, and this is going to be for all of you, and maybe we'll start with one, but we'll, have a bit of a dialogue. What is it that you've learned that you wish someone had told you before you started working in community? If you were to give your pearls of wisdom, the things that you go, oh my God, if I only knew this, it would have made the road somewhat less complex, or maybe easier, or maybe there's nothing, but I'm not sure. Janine, would you like to give us some of your learnings?
Yeah, I can kick off. Being an artist in community and you're trying to drive something can be so hard and so isolating, because you're the only one. Yeah, we probably all know that. And I think one great thing is, if you can find your supports, that's one thing that I've learned that's so important. And even if you can, get a producer. Not many people in the region know what producers are or what they do, but if you can find someone who's got a bit of get up and go, and you can show them what it is, like walk them through it, through one project, you know, the next project, hopefully they'll be on fire and just be your biggest support.
Okay. While you mull over some more of your learnings, Janine, I'm going to go to Chloe.
It's a hard one to sort of disseminate it into a sentence. For me, I think it's just like, people are not going to understand what you're doing, so don't worry, that's fine. And also, you're going to have to explain to people that this is not going to work on the timeline that they think it will. And you're just going to have to get really good at that conversation over and over again. It's not going to be that cheap, and it's not going to be that quick. But if you give us permission to take our time, it will be so beneficial to community. I think there's a little bit of a translation issue that sometimes exists in regional spaces. In the city, and like, I've worked all over the world. I've worked in the city, I've worked in Spain, I've worked in France, and now I work in regional WA. In other places, there is context for it. And so there's a lot more permission for things to take time. We don't have that context yet in regional Western Australia. It's not built into the language of the way that we operate. It's not built into local government. It's not built into even how our funding timelines work. So like, be honest with yourself about how long it'll take, and be honest to everyone else, I think.
Sorry, what do you mean it's not built into, like, you're saying that the community arts practice is not understood in regional Western Australia, is that what you're saying?
It hasn't been, this version of community practice hasn't been long-lived. It changes quite a lot, and it flexes quite a lot and morphs quite a lot with the different funding models that come out, would be my observation. Like the 90s and 2000s, there was a deep focus on getting artists into schools, and that had a huge and different transformative effect on regional communities. Now, the way that like arts goes into schools, it's structured a little bit differently. So it might be a bit more of a residency model than a performance model, and that's going to change things. We haven't really had time in Western Australia to develop a long-term integrated community development profile, because it flexes a lot, because funding changes a lot. I don't think that's a bad thing, but sometimes it feels like you'll get into the groove of how you can run a project, and then you'll have to naturally flex and change because what structures and support you had weren't there. Like the COVID communities funding that came out through DLGSC, which was incredibly flexible and birthed all these amazing projects. That funding's not there, so the way you do projects kind of changed. I think if someone had sat me down and been like, every year it's going to be different, you're going to have to rewrite the book every year, I'd be like, okay, cool, that's okay, I'm not failing every time I rewrite. This is actually just normal and part of the process.
Okay. Yep, I get your point. Thank you. Lex, what about you? What are the things that you I wish someone would have told me, sat me down?
Well, I feel like people did tell me this, but it just was totally different when I moved here. That even though I do feel like Wyndham is my community, I'm definitely still a visitor here, and this place is, you know, has traditional owners who have such a long connection to the land and the culture and everything up here, and really it's still taking me time to really I guess check my privilege, to understand that I need to be vulnerable and transparent to the community members here about what I do, who I am, and what I want to achieve, and to really work at building like genuine collaborative relationships with lots of people in community. You can't just find the one right person. It's about talking to so many different community members, and yeah, I guess, and honouring like the complexity of First Nations experience.
I couldn't agree more. I think what you just said is really, really important. The length of time, the conversation that have to happen, they're circular sometimes, the iterative, you know, that some people have different opinions on something that's so deep, and stories are interpreted by different people have ownership of different things. All of that is so nuanced, and so you know, there's got a time and place for these things. So I just want to add time, which was, you all articulated this, but time and trust, I think they're absolutely essential elements of this practice. If you don't have trust, and that is a currency that is fragile, if trust is not there, community arts and cultural development will just not occur, because the stories that, in a way, that begin to emerge from this practice are quite deep and profound, and some of them are very delicate, and I've been in situations where people have disclosed something for the first time. I will never forget. Sorry, this is just I think just adds hopefully to this. It was a younger man. He was in his 50s, and he what we had created together was such that he disclosed something that he had not spoken before, and it was just thinking about it gives me goosebumps, because it was so special to him and everyone who witnessed that, and witnessing him telling the story, it was incredibly powerful, and that takes, you know, life of its own. I am just Gemma, did you have anything that you want to add at this point?
No, just enjoying the conversation so far. Let me know if there's any questions people have on their mind. You're welcome to put them on the chat, and we'll get there in a moment.
Yeah, so I was going to say, if anyone has got any specific question at this point, to you know, think about it, and then we'll get to them in a minute. I just want to go back a little bit to if you would like to offer something for us to imagine, like something a bit more specific about a project that you work on. You know, I just want to get the details, something if you could describe. I mean, Chloe did that a little bit in telling us, okay, I was working, I had the bicycles, it took a month, people were projecting. I think that to me was great, because I went there right out. I went there with you in the bicycle, understanding how that was happening. I just want to, Janine, if you got any example of that kind of that interface with community, what was happening, to paint us a picture of so we can imagine, we can go there.
Yeah, I've got a couple, but there's one in particular. A metro organisation wanted to do something regional, and they got an amazing regional artist to come to the region who knew exactly how to work with community, and the organisation didn't understand how they were working. And so for that arts worker, they were dealing with the community, getting to know the community, finding that trust that we've been talking about, which we all know takes time. And the organisation was, come on, where's our outcomes? What's happening here? And just as a community member watching that push and pull, that was a real massive struggle, to the point that the arts worker went, no, because this needs to happen this way. I'm not going to do that. And then there's another one that I'm working with at the moment, and the organisation is from overseas, and they're coming in to a regional community wanting to work with Indigenous people, which is amazing, and it's going to be a fantastic project. And the community has its complexities, and some of the elders don't talk to other elders, and some of, you know, the families, there's a little bit of difficulty there, so trying to find the right people. And it's taking a lot longer than they thought it was going to take. And so there's been some confusion. Then they started getting the ball rolling without the elders, without even communicating with the elders. And so for myself and the other Indigenous people who are working on the project, when we found out, it was like, whoa, what are you doing? And so they almost lost a lot of the Indigenous people who are working on the show, and they've got about 4 of them. And they're lucky to have those 4, because they just lost communication with the elders.
Yeah.
So this is, you know, things can go really pear-shaped. Luckily, we kind of went, no, that can't happen, and so the ball's been picked up again, but it took a bit of work to get that respect back.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Janine. Again, that's so critical. There's a rhythm and a protocol that must be followed. Lex, I want to come back to you, because I'd love to hear an example of maybe a project that you could describe a little bit of what was happening, what was the interaction, what was happening. Yeah. Can you give us an example?
Well, the project that I'm still currently working on is called Emotional First Aid Ambulance. And it came about when I was given the opportunity to be part of a national mentoring project to create socially engaged art. And I really wanted it to have its kind of heart in Wyndham, but at the same time, I guess partly because of the time constraints and the funding model and everything of that project, I had to have an outcome by a certain point. So I ended up taking that project to the Awesome Festival. It's a work with children, and children we had conversations about what would be in your emotional first aid kit and to create an item to put in there. And the conversations and the initial part of that development started in Wyndham in my art classroom with the kids that I work with here, but it kind of very quickly kind of changed because I had to have that outcome. And I'm at this stage just wanting to get really back into Wyndham, and the things that we're looking at the moment now are particularly around language, the way that the kids in Wyndham talk about their mental health and the words they use to describe how they're feeling is just so different. And it's not something that I know or something that I can create. It really is going to take to take time, but it's really important conversations. And I think the arts it's a really safe way and a really playful,
give us an
comfortable
example of something that the children have said. I'd like to. That's something that you could share.
Yeah. Well, one of my students in Wyndham created so that in all of these scenarios at this phase of the project, they're given like a blank box, and that is they create the outside of a container of something that is for the emotional first aid kit. So one boy was saying that when he is feeling kind of agitated or angry, what he needs is to go out bush and have a walk. So he created this box, and the product was, a walk in the country. And he decorated that with an image and said, when it had a little phrase, if you're feeling like, if you're feeling angry, take a walk and a deep breath and, it'll help you feel better, kind of thing. But, in the city as well, we had, virtual hugs and
there will
sunshine,
be there will be
all kinds of
yeah.
But yeah, even that
that sounds like a beautiful project for kids to reflect, stop and trying to kind of put words on some complex emotional language. I just want to ask, probably this is the last question that I'll ask you, and I'm gonna go to you, Chloe. Where did you learn? Where did you learn to be a community artist or a community cultural development practitioner? Because I won't say anymore. I just want to know, where did you go to learn this?
Raise your hand if you went to uni to learn this, because it wasn't that. No, I learned it through a few different ways. I learned it by seeing it, like it was happening in my community because of programs that were happening. So as a young person, I was just like, oh, that's the way that it works, is there's just people and somehow they get here and then we do stuff with them. And that's the way that art happens in the regions, I guess. And then when I got to high school and it was TE, I'm showing my age here, TE time or tertiary entrance time, it was supposed to choose what our jobs were going to be, to choose our subjects. And I said to a teacher, I want to do this thing. This guy came out to our school once when I was little, and he like painted murals with us, and it was like, great. Like, what job is that? And she's like, I don't know. Be a teacher. Go do teaching. And I'm like, it's not teaching. I know it's not that. And then I just started doing mentorships and internships through arts organizations, and always found myself heading towards the education and touring stream. Like I just kept either ending up in those people's offices or ended up having chats with them while they were writing grants. And so much of it was trying to figure out, how are we getting the art stuff in the city out to the regions? How come there wasn't any infrastructure in the regions, really? Like small regional towns have theatres, but they don't have people running program. Why does that? Lots of questions. And then I got a grant to go across to the UK, and I started doing practice with Comfrey Project and a puppet company. And so they do refugee resettlement. And so we ended up writing a show with the refugee community over there and then touring it around the UK and around Europe. And it was interesting because there was no separation between like community arts practice and professional practice. It was just assumed that if you were doing stuff in the arts, your community was going to be involved in some way. And it made me really think, gee, why don't we have that in Western Australia in that way where it's just fundamentally understood and done? COVID happened, came back out into my community, was heartbroken by the fact that it was peak COVID and there was no programs. And I just went, I'll give it a go. So I went to WAPA, West Australian Academy of Performing Arts, for like 2 semesters and did a writing course to learn how to grant write and some arts management stuff to understand the management side of stuff. And then it was really just like, pardon my French, fucking up a lot and seeing what worked and what didn't. And that's how I have the practice that I have now, which was just trial and error and a lot of grace given by people going like, we don't know what this is either, so good luck. Making really good connections with my local government group was actually one of the best things I could have done. We had an amazing DCEO, Andrina Prinic, when I was starting out, and she took the time to sit down with me and actually chat about like what a community development officer looks like in a local government scenario. And we had a huge chat about whether me coming on board and working in local government would actually assist the community or whether staying outside of the local government model would fit the community better. And we chose that I would stay outside, but she would keep sending me information, and that really shaped my practice as well. So really, I only know how to do what I do because other people have like tapped me on the shoulder and been like, try that and not that. But yeah, trial and error. I still don't know what I'm doing 90% of the time. I'm not afraid to admit that.
Yeah.
But yeah, some days it's producing, some days it's workshops, some days it's budgets. It's such a strange job to try to explain to somebody. So yeah, if anyone wants to write a course on how to do it, I will be the first person to sign up. I want to learn how to do it better. That's what I have to say.
I feel like I've got so much to say on that, but I won't. I'm going to ask Janine. Janine, where did you learn?
It really started for me when I was going away to study, and when I'd come back to town, I felt like my town had given me so much and I really wanted to give back. So I just started doing little free dance classes whenever I was home. Sorry, my dog's hungry. she's a staffy, so she's very vocal.
We can't hear.
Oh, awesome. That's great. It's like when your child is crying and that's all you can hear.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just started giving back. Every time I came home, I'd just start working in the community, and that just kind of escalated. And then I went away, I went overseas, and when I came back, there was people in the community who were really trying to strengthen arts, and through the grapevine they'd heard, oh, my daughter's a dancer, she's coming back. And so we had a meeting like within my first 2 weeks of me being in town, and that kind of just springboarded off the work again. And a lot of it is like Chloe's saying, you just have to do your best and you just have to talk. Communication's key. And it's just really keeping people in the loop of what's going on and not thinking that you know everything, because half the time you probably are going down the wrong path. So as long as you're continually asking what's happening and working with those key people in the community, there's always got to be a few key people that can support you to learn.
Thank you. It's kind of a shame that we can't say that there's a university or a course or something that actually really delves into this. And I've dedicated I've done a lot of study on this practice because I'm in love with it, and I really wanted to know everything there was to know about it. And I could, as I said, I could speak about the history and the principles and where it comes from and the philosophy, but we don't have time. Maybe another time, because there is so much to it as an international practice. in different countries is not differently. But the inspiration for this, in essence, is a practice to liberate communities. That's where it comes from, and it's not a Western concept. It comes from actually every time that I try to understand where it came from, it actually came from Latin America, from an educator called Paulo Freire. He was the inspiration behind the thinking of it, not the art, but everything points back to that, which is, I find it fascinating. But I thought I'll take the opportunity to ask Karen a question, if you don't mind, Karen. I just want to ask you, what is it that Karen has been around for a long time? She's a community artist that is practicing community for 25 years or more, Karen. I know your work, and I thought, if we ask someone who's been around for that length of time, what is it that, if someone would say to you, what is it, what did you wish that you knew then, in the 25-year-old Karen, before you began, that what can you tell us? A little pearl of wisdom. And we don't have a lot of time, Karen, but if you could give us, if you feel like it.
You're totally human. And the heart has 4 ventricles. I think that's what I would say. And learning to look after yourself and, be within your own skin.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you.
And just as a quick note, there is university courses, and I've just put on there that I actually teach in the Masters of Community Development. Specifically, they got me in because I'm a creative practitioner.
Where is that, Murdoch?
Murdoch Uni, and the Masters there. And in some of the units of creative methodologies, narratives, and Indigenous, working with Indigenous communities. So
that's Dave Palmer stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and also in the undergraduate, they got me in to do a workshop. So there is things out there, but, like anything I say, come and do a project.
Yeah, certainly there are little things in pocket, but there's no a whole course dedicated to this practice that I'm aware of. In Victoria they had a postgrad, but it doesn't with the VCA, but it doesn't no longer exist. So this is something I think just great to reflect. And thanks, Karen, for reminding me. I knew that Dave Palmer many years ago. I was one of the presenters at his classes at some times, and it's great to know that continues and is evolved. So that's wonderful. I'm going to open it up for questions now. Gemma, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, we've got I've got a question here from Jessica. Jessica, would you like me to read it out, or did you want to? Yep. Okay. Who better to answer this than 3 artists here, but Jessica said, as a visual artist, if I have personally organised myself a working with children's check and a police check, would it be okay to start organising arts groups in my local community centre hall, or do I need more paperwork? When I'm out and about, kids are very drawn to my work, so I've been considering hosting art making groups for both kids and adults to self-develop their visual arts practice. Community artists, is there anything else, or is it just getting that paperwork done and starting? What else needs to be done before you start approaching those groups?
Public liability insurance, probably. You'd definitely want your PL. So making sure that you have ArtSource is a really fantastic organisation to chat to about things like insurance if you need to. They're based in Freo. If you just look up ArtSource, they can point you in the right direction to getting yourself just a little bit of public liability cover, because you will need that sort of stuff if you're operating in community. Also, just if you have a chat, if they're open to it, I know every town is different, having a chat with your shire, having a chat with your local government authority and just saying, hey, this is something I want to do in community. Do you guys have any advice? Can you point me in the right direction? Because they may even be able to help you source a location within your community as well, and let you know if there is any additional clearances that you need for operating in your community. Never be afraid to ask your shire. But I know that can be contentious in some communities.
Thanks, Chloe. That's great. Anyone else would like to ask a question? Do we have any more questions there, Gemma?
No, but we've got some. Karen has said duck for cover is also good to start for freelance artists for PL. public liability. Janine also said that. Does anyone have any, even if you want to raise your hand?
Jesse here with a question.
Yes, hello.
Hi.
Thanks for having everyone here today. I'm going to preface this question by saying I'm not 100% sure about the structure of Regional Arts WA, but I wanted to know what you guys do in terms of your structures, your policies, your term plans for the future for safeguarding the people and the positions they hold in community arts. Janine mentioned it's a very isolating job, and I've heard from many people that it's an incredibly difficult position and role, as well as rewarding. And I was just curious to know what you guys do in terms of not only supporting the current artists, but building towards a better place for them to work in these communities.
Yes, very good question, Jesse. I'm mindful that this practice is, as I said, fraught with danger and people do need support. The organization is pivoting more towards understanding and giving opportunities for people who work in communities to have this. So this is the first of hopefully a series of conversations. So first of all, we need to come together and understand where you are, what are some of the issues. So we will continue to do that, and we're really keen to learn more. So we will, that's where we are at the moment, really trying to reconnect with artists that are working in communities. We have been quite focused on working with organizations. The state is enormous, right? So the state is really big. So we are right now in a moment of shift and change. But supporting artists it's one of the things that we want to do. So and also in a much broader scale, we also are an advocacy organization. So we are developing alongside the organizations that form part of the Regional Arts Network. We are developing a strategic framework to advocate for government to increase the resources across the sector before the next election. So that sounds, I know it sounds really dry and kind of probably boring, but let me tell you that we are really trying to amplify the voices and the issues that we hear to be able to communicate the importance of this sector to the rest of the community, and also how arts intersects with so many other sectors. We know intersects with health. We know that the World Health Organization recognizes the importance of the arts. We know intersects with education. So we are having those kind of conversations behind the scenes, if you like, to create a better environment for all practitioners. But this, Chloe, I'll give you the floor in a second. But this series of more focus on community arts and cultural development is probably something that will continue to evolve. And we also give grants, obviously. That is already a great way of supporting artists, since, the grants let's not underestimate the power of resources to be able to do what you want to do. Chloe.
To potentially make a little bit more of a direct answer to that question, not saying that your answer wasn't direct, Pilar, but to maybe get to the root of it. EAPs, employee assistance plans, or employee access plans for mental health. There are some service organizations which you can access as an artist that not a lot of people know about. Support Act is one of them. I use Support Act myself. I get 12 sessions a year. I use it a lot if I work in communities, where you can take a 50-minute session with a counsellor up to 12 times in a year. They have experience working in the arts, so quite a lot of them understand and know. I think Gemma may be able to correct me on this. The Chamber of the Arts is helping people access EAPs as well. So if you can't get access to an employee assistance plan through your job, that is something that you can access. And I would highly recommend anyone who's working in community, if you are going to start on a project or in the middle of a big project, even just doing a couple of check-in sessions with a counsellor can help, because you end up carrying a lot of stress with you, and you've got to get it out of your system some way. And sometimes, as anyone who works in a region knows, we don't have psychologists out here, and there's nothing wrong with asking for help. Blue Knot is an organization not a lot of people know about. They are specific for helping people who are dealing with complex trauma, specific to SA or other types of trauma. They can offer you a 30-minute counselling session and then refer if you need access to like Helpline Beyond Blue. They can also do a referral service and assist you in accessing services in your community. So if you can't find that kind of direct support through an org like Regional Arts WA, there are some fringe support networks who might not be art specific who can definitely help, but it would be great to start seeing some art specific mental health services out there as well. Because it's a lot working in the regions. It's isolating, it's heavy. And
thank you. And of course, the organization, you know, we've got project officers. You can always also reach out and we can put you in touch with other people, other creatives in your community as well. Look, I'm very conscious of the time. We've got 3 minutes. And if I just want to maybe in this time ask if there's any final remarks, anything that you feel like I should have said something but I didn't, to the 3 artists who have been, you know, kind of sharing their practice with us this evening. So Janine, is there anything would you like to finish with?
No, I'd just like to say thanks for the opportunity, guys. This has been really great. Hello, and Gemma and Regional Arts for doing this. I'm really excited that it's going to happen every month. And I think it's a beautiful way for regional artists to not only get information, like as we've talked about tonight, about working in communities, but also being a part of a wider network of artists, and potentially we can, you know, work together or share information or stories.
Janine, I'm not sure if we're going to do this every month in this format, but we will definitely have more opportunities to do this. Yes, thank you. Chloe, Lex, I can see you're unmuted, so I'll go to you, Lex. Any final remarks?
Just that I absolutely love this getting together and having conversations about it. I think you know, Janine and probably all of us mentioned that it can be a really isolating job working in communities. Yeah. And yeah, I think there's so much that we can share and learn from each other. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Chloe.
I think one of the most important things that I just want to impress upon anyone, particularly if you are a young artist or a young person who's entering into this space and sphere, don't be afraid to give feedback to organizations. Don't be afraid to say, I need help with this. Don't be afraid to say, hey, can you advocate in this direction? Don't be afraid to say, hey, it's really hard out here and we're in a bit of a shadow. Don't be afraid to give that feedback back up the chain. Because like organizations like Regional Arts WA, DLGSC, all of those guys, they can only direct stuff with the information they get. So the more that you reach back out to those organizations and say, hey, this thing's hard, we need help with this. If we could change this, it would be great. The more likely it is that change will happen. So please don't ever have that thing where you're like, I can't give this feedback because it's mean or it's harsh or it's cruel. It's not, it's data and it's relevant data. And if you can express it in a way that it can be shared, please share it back up the chain. And then that helps us get the change back out and on the ground where it needs to be. And yeah, thanks to everyone who's ever been brave in the regional arts sector and requested for a change to be made, because we're all standing on the shoulders of you guys who have made a lot of positive change out there. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, on that beautiful note, I'm going to close the session. I just want to say thank you to all of you really for coming along. You know, it's, yeah, if you don't come along and you not show interest, you know, we'll never know that you are interested. So we really want to repeat this. We want to, you know, really begin to bring people together. I think community arts and cultural development is such an incredible, powerful practice. And you know, we will do everything to really begin to speak about it more, make it more visible so other people really understand the power of the arts. I think you guys are wonderful. The work that you do is amazing. And yeah, look, go well. And please know, we are a membership organization. The membership is free because we really want to engage with the sector. So if you want to get in contact with us, please become a member. And now, Gemma, before I close it completely, is there anything else that we need to?
Oh, you guys have wrapped it up beautifully. I just put the link into our membership. It is free, and we are stronger in numbers to do, you know, more advocacy on your behalf, more programs, more things like this. And although they might not be monthly yet, we are looking at a series of conversations where we unpack topics. We profile amazing artists like these 3, and we have some great conversations. So thank you, Lex, Janine, Chloe, and and Pilar and everyone for attending. It will be online. Janine, Gemma, Janine are looking at doing a producer's chat. Oh, okay. All right. Connections happening already. So I would email everyone who attended after this. And if you would like to get in touch with anyone, we'll just let us know and we'll make sure they're comfortable giving out their details.
Thank you,
All right.
everyone. Go well, take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.